Hello, Lux On Demand family. My name is Greg, and I am so excited to welcome you here on YouTube. Typically, we do our services live every Wednesday at 8:30 p.m. EST at twitch.tv/Lux Digital Church. We get to chat with you live and talk with you live every week there. But we are also honored that you have joined us here on demand on YouTube. We have a lot of awesome resources and videos that you can check out here on our channel. But right now, I just want to introduce you to the talk that we have and say that I really hope that you enjoy. Thank you for joining us. We love you guys.
Amen. Hey, church family. Thank you so much to Jate for being willing to lead a time of prayer tonight. And church, I just want you to know how important it is for us. First off, Miss Jellybeans, welcome to church. It's good to see you. Glad to have you here with us. Secondly, I just want you to know how important it is that as a church that you don't just see my face, because the church isn't one person. It's not a talking head. It's not charisma. It's not a personality. A church is people. And one of the reasons why we have people who pray for us every week is because the church is for all of us. Mark, you're not going to put me on the video, are you? I'm not Homemade Things. I did hear that you didn't know that Zeph was being baptized, so I'm sorry if I spoiled something, Zeph. I love you. Tonight we are in part 2 of a series, a collection of talks called Glow. But before we do that, I want to say welcome and thank you for being here with us, especially if you're here for the very first time. And if you're joining us later on over VOD or podcast or YouTube, I want to thank you for being here as well. You're an important part of our family, and our on-demand family is really important to us. We want to connect with you. We want to hear your stories. Please come and join us in Discord so we can get to know you a little bit better. We'd love to get a chance to connect with you and get to know you. And we want to invite you to all come and join us live next week as well. Next week, on Wednesday night, every week, we have a live service here on Twitch. And if you're here with us live, thank you so much for being here. Listen, I looked earlier, there's over 70 people who are here live in service with us, which is so incredible and so encouraging. I just want to let you know, hey, Kim, good to see you. Every single person who's here pushes us closer to the top of the category and just chatting. So I want you to just imagine for a moment with me that on Wednesday nights, when people click the just chatting category, they come in and the stream that is in the top of the just chatting category is not a stream of a scantily dressed woman that people are clicking into, but instead on every Wednesday night starting at 8:30 p.m. a church is the number one thing in the church category, or in the just chatting category. I believe that God wants to do something redemptive and carve out a space for his kingdom work within this specific category here on Twitch that's largely known for its sexuality and debauchery. I believe there's an opportunity for God's kingdom to grow and move. And so when you are here, I want you to know that it matters. Invite your friends, invite your family, grab your phone, have everyone log in on their phone and watch together. It actually is meaningful. It makes a difference. Your participation here is more than just a number to us. It's also kingdom impact and kingdom reach to us. It's not about just growing bigger and getting more numbers. Numbers are cool and that's exciting, but it's about a further reach and a larger opportunity to interact with people who don't know Jesus or have no interest in God or have no impact or interaction with the church at all. It's an opportunity for us to reach in, to touch their lives and have them be able to step into our live stream and our community and hear about the church. Nav, good to see you. Welcome to church. Tonight, we're in part 2 of this new collection of talks called Glow. And tonight we're going to be joined by JateLIVE here in just a moment. But before we get Jate in here, I wanted to go over a quick review of what we already talked about. Last week we discussed what is sort of our take-home point, or like our central theme for this series, which is this: God has uniquely created you to reach people only you can reach. God has uniquely created you to reach people only you can reach. It's your passions, your titles, and your talents are unique giftings that are given to you by God on purpose. They're not accidental, they are intentional, and God intends for you to use them. We talked about the Great Commission in the end of the book of Matthew and the story of Jesus sort of commissioning and telling the disciples to wait in the city of Jerusalem in Acts chapter 1. And when we read that last week, we just said, listen, God has created you and crafted you intentionally and for a reason, and he wants you to actually, this isn't just for the super pastors. This isn't just for the super Christians. It's not just for the professional Christians to live these things out. It's for every single person who calls on Jesus Christ as Savior and Lord. We are all compelled. Bow down to Mike. Good to see you. We are all compelled, all called, all commanded to go in to every sphere of our life and be an ambassador for Christ. And so we talked a little bit about those passions of those things. And then we talked about 3 steps for that. We said that those steps are waiting on the power of God, receiving receiving the power of God and going in the power of God. We talked last week about waiting on the power of God, but I wanted to talk really quick on receiving the power of God and direction from God. And there's a couple of passages from the scriptures that I want to read to you. Both of them come from the book of Matthew in chapter 3 and in chapter 4. It's the story of Jesus' baptism. Now, right before Jesus was baptized, we don't know a whole lot about his life. In fact, for the first 30 years, we know that he was the son of Joseph and Mary, but we know very little about his life leading up to the time that he was baptized. Sometimes, guys, we get anxious and upset whenever we have to wait a few days or a few weeks for God to reveal the next steps for us. But Jesus was in waiting for 30 years. And after he was baptized, he was sent into the wilderness for 40 days. And when people see the wilderness experience, they say that is Jesus waiting on the power of God, but that's not it. That was the beginning of Jesus going in the power of God. That was the beginning of Jesus going. It wasn't him waiting. It was the beginning of his going. And sometimes when we begin to go, church family, it can feel like we're in a wasteland. It can feel like we're in a wilderness. It can feel like we've been forgotten about. Sometimes we think when we feel compelled to go and to follow God and we take that first step of faith that it's going to be this amazing journey that's never going to end. It's going to be so awesome and so cool. And it's just going to be like thrills around every corner. But the reality is sometimes when we start in the pursuit of God, when we begin following it feels like a wilderness. So when did Jesus actually do the receiving? He did the waiting for the 30 years. He went into the wilderness to start his ministry in the going. But when did he do the receiving? And I think it's in the book of Matthew. Let's read it together. It says this: as soon as Jesus was baptized, he went up to the water. He went up out of the water. At that moment, heaven was opened, and he saw the Spirit of God descending like a dove and alighting on him. And a voice from heaven said, "This is my Son, whom I love. With him I am well pleased." Matthew 4:1-2 says, then Jesus was led by the Spirit into the wilderness to be tempted by the devil. After fasting 40 days and 40 nights, he was hungry. When Jesus was baptized, he receives, and then Jesus was sent. Now, these moments look different for each person. Some of them, for Jesus, it looked like a dove descending from the sky. For some people, it's just God sort of lining up the things in our life and making the proper connections, like pop, pop, pop. Oh, okay, these make sense. Now I understand what God has for me. That happened to me once in 10th grade and once in my early 30s, right before I felt called into youth ministry, right before I felt pulled into planning Lux. And I want to be really clear about something that's super important. Listen, the calling on my life and on our family right now is to lead Lux Digital Church. And that might not be the calling in the direction for your life, but that doesn't mean the calling in the direction of your life is any less important. Literally, like heaven and hell hang in the balance of us understanding that God has created us with mission, intention, and purpose. And he's created you with passions and talents and titles to be used in expanding his kingdom. You matter and you're important. And now there's this guy who I've gotten a chance to meet named Jate. I've had a chance to meet with him in person twice. We've built a really cool friendship. I actually spent 2 hours with him in Alt Space yesterday, and I'm really excited because he's here with us live tonight because he's one of the people who knows who he is and why he's doing what he's doing better than just about anybody else. And I've talked to a ton of Christian streamers on Twitch about anybody else on Twitch. Jate is a person who knows that so very, very clearly. So if I could get some fives in chat, please, as we welcome in Jate Earhart from JateLIVE. Jate, coming into the stream. How you doing tonight, dude?
I'm doing well. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, brother. I'm so glad that you're here with us tonight, man.
I'm happy to be here.
Awesome, dude. Hey, we wanted to, I know you pretty well. We've had lots of conversations. We got lots of fives in the chat. By the way, fives in our chat mean clapping because churches clap, at least, well, the white churches I've been in have done a lot of clap. Phantom Methodist, welcome to church.
Right.
But can I ask you a first question is this, Jay, could you just tell us a little bit about yourself? Let people get to know you. You're one of our stream partners here, at Lux Digital Church, which means we support you. We support you with prayer. We support you with some resource.
Thank you for that.
Can you tell us a little bit about, you and just like help our church family get to know you a little bit?
Sure. Yeah. So hi, I'm Jate, and yeah, we do something different like every day, pretty much play a lot of different video games. Most of the week, I'm playing games and just getting to know people. I'm a nerd for sure. Played way too many different video games. I like to do variety, and I also love anime. So, but my main goal is to get to know people so that I can hopefully introduce them into a relationship with Jesus Christ. And that's it's very difficult when it's not what people are expecting. Obviously, they're not coming to Twitch for that, and so you have to kind of earn the trust. And so that's the goal during the week, is to mostly just get to know people for an opportunity to originally just to get to pray with people, get to pray for people, and hopefully get to speak a little bit of truth into why I believe that really matters. And yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. I mean, there has been, I mean, throughout my time with you, Jate, and like getting to know you and hanging out with you, like you've streamed like virtually more than anybody else that I've ever talked to. I mean, we're talking like
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit
Too
about
much.
what we talked about just the other day, in alt space, where you talked about kind of like the two types of streaming out there and the type of
Right.
streaming that you're really into and why it is that you're doing that?
Yeah. I've thought about this a lot because it's really difficult. There is an expectation when you start streaming that your goal is to get as many viewers as possible. You know, your goal is to be as big as possible. And once I hit a certain, I fell into that. I mean, I thought that was just kind of the goal, and it was with the right intentions. You know, more people means more opportunities to share the most important thing. You know, and so this is when I started to kind of realize there's two different types of streams. There's a stream that is that's entertainers, and there's streams that are personal. And it makes sense when you break it in that way, because there are people that are Christians that are entertainers, and their goal is to entertain and then hopefully share some truth. But they're a little bit more removed from the people that they're talking to. It's not as personal. You don't get to know the people. You don't get to feel the pain when something bad happens in their life. It's sort of your ultimate goal is there to entertain versus being there for the people. And so I am much more the personal side, and I've had to even pull back and I've had to stop doing short-term content and just a couple different things to try to keep it a little bit smaller so that I can keep up with that. And it's really I think the difficulty on that, is how to keep it personal when it wants to go bigger. And that's why I think it's really important that we have lots of different people doing this kind of stuff. And there's, you guys are going to hear from Aki and Peach next week, and we've actually talked about this at lengths. There's a benefit to it being a whole family of people that are all able to read the chat, all able to respond. The quality of Aki's stream really went up whenever it was Aki and his wife both were able to have a microphone and pop in whenever necessary. He can play the game and she can be talking, or vice versa. And there's a lot of benefit to all of that. And I noticed the same thing with you guys, right? You have a room full of people and lots of eyes on the chat. People can be responding, adding on people. So there's lots of ways to do it. It's just it is difficult when it's just me, and my cat actually doesn't know how to type yet. So Phoenix would love to answer some of the stuff, but yeah.
Well, one of the things you were just talking about yesterday was how your goal is really to stream your life. And when I think about your stream, I mean, that's really what I think. And actually, I mean, Twitch was originally Justin.tv, and that's kind of what it was, right? It was a dude just live streaming his life. And for all intents and purposes, for like a year, I mean, you were in front of your PC 15, 16, 17 hours a day. And that's really what you were doing, was just like, hey, come hang out with me as I live life. We'll play games together, and I'll pray for you and teach you. And but tell me a little bit about, like, because one of the things that you do that's really unique and special. By the way, hi Reverb, good to see you. That's the dream setup. Cat, having the cat as a stenographer. I don't even know what a stenographer is, but
it's the people that it's the people that type really, really fast. They use the keyboards where they barely move their hands or whatever. And when they're for like law, whenever they have to say like what the person said, and you're in a court, there's that person typing the thing.
Yep. Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Lady
Really important
says,
detail
your
there.
lighting looks really cool. And we had a couple people from your community also drop in and say hello. But let me follow. Tell me a little bit about what you do on Saturdays, because that has always kind of been a central part. And what provoked you to start doing that on Saturdays as well?
Yeah, so actually, that's what provoked starting streaming at all originally. We did a lot of streaming in Discord, and we were doing Bible discussions in Discord, and I wasn't streaming on Twitch at the time, and our Discord got really, really big before like I was streaming. I wasn't planning on streaming at the time, and there was probably like 1,000 people or so in the Discord before we any of us had started streaming. There's a lot of us now that are doing that, but there was one friend in particular who I love a lot, is not a Christian, doesn't believe in Jesus, but does just we have an awesome relationship. We've played games together for like 9 years, and I asked this person, hey, would you be willing to come to my Bible discussion that we do on Discord? And he said, honestly, just because like we're friends, I can be honest about this. I can't dedicate that much time to something I don't believe in. And I felt honored that he would be willing to be upfront with that, rather than he could have really minced the words on that. And I appreciated that. So that was sort of the like, well, how could we do that then? Is there a way that I could make it where it's really low commitment? If you want to come in, then you can. If you want to leave, then you can. If there's something you don't feel comfortable with, you can just, you can deck out. But I want to make it available to you because it is the like most important thing to me. And so that was really where it came. We played games on Discord and would stream it back and forth to each other all the time. And so it just made sense that why don't I put it on Twitch, and I play those games on Twitch, and you can just watch. And what if I play a video game while we're doing the Bible discussion, and would you be willing to do that? And it's like, yeah, maybe I could probably do that. Maybe while I was like working out or something, I could have it up, or, I could put it on my phone. So that really was the start of what became Games and God, which every Saturday we read through a chapter of the Bible while playing a video game, and just discuss. It's not, I don't call it a Bible study because for one, I don't even call myself a pastor, but it's just a time to like, let's read what this says, and if we have questions, we can ask them, and let's just discuss. And it takes us probably about 3 hours on average to get through a chapter of the Bible, because there's just so many questions that aren't even necessarily related to the chapter that we're reading. I feel like I say this a lot, but it can be very often people will ask, they will answer questions. Oh, sorry. Thank you, whoever just followed. I got to mute that thing. People will answer questions that people aren't asking. And so and that happens pretty regularly with pastors. They'll have a tendency to just like answer a bunch of questions and maybe not answer the question somebody's asking, just because they out of not knowing. There's no way to know for sure what this person's going to ask. And so we get an opportunity to just, let's not come up with anything ahead of time. I appreciate that as a thing that people do. But for us, we just get to, since we have access already to everybody right now, why not just ask questions and have people, that are there that can help answer them. So we do on Saturdays.
Yeah, that's awesome. One of the things, Jate, that I love is, and I'm off the questions that I sent you, by the way, but I love part of your story that has been really compelling and powerful for me personally. And that is sort of, we've been talking about waiting on God and then receiving power from the Spirit and then going into what God has sent us to. And you had that moment. Like, you had that moment of clarity, that receive power moment that flung you from what you were doing into, essentially, it's like burn the boats. This is what God told me to do, and I'm going to go do it all out. Can you tell us about what were you doing? And I know that you're very humble in the way that you talk about it, but be honest with us about kind of like where you were and what was going on in your mind and in your life as you felt God pull you into something entirely new.
And That's a like a longer story. Obviously, there's a lot that goes into all that, but the shorter version that I'm sure still will be too long was I was doing motion graphics for like some pretty big companies, like Google and Nike, ESPN, Estee Lauder, Ted Baker, Cleveland Cavs, 76ers. I like went to a Conor McGregor match that if you know UFC, which I'm sure not a lot of people do, but there's like, I went to the match and they like wanted to take my picture in Conor McGregor's blood. It was the first time they had his like blood on the UFC ring. And I had Dana White like put his arm on my shoulder and said like, "Good job, son." And I was like, I didn't even know who that was. And people were like, "Do you know who that is?" Like, no, I have no clue who that is. I know he's on the TV or something. So like, just crazy, I don't care about sports. So other people are probably like, "What? How do you not know these people?" But these are all sports people. So that I was doing just like cool stuff, doing motion graphics things. I just loved my job, honestly. But I remember there was the first moment was I was at a Cavs game, and I was essentially watching my introduction. Like I had this big animation that I'd made on the court. And it's a big animation thing that makes the court look like it's moving, if you know projection mapping. And it's the intro that like all the lights go down and then this happens. And the sound effects I created and the visuals I created. And it's played for like thousands of people in this auditorium. We're recording it with a nice camera. I've got the Cavs like CEO owner guy like right next to me. And everybody stands up and like, yeah, and Cavs, let's go. And my manager like nudged me in the shoulders and was like, "You did that. That's you." And I remember in that moment thinking, this is the coolest thing I've ever done. Like in my entire life, this is it. This is like why I did everything. And I remember I was already a Christian at the time, but I remembered God right then saying like, "Is it?" Like that. It was just very small, but it was just a question. Like just think about what you just said and just think a little deeper about it. Like, is that actually the coolest thing you've ever done? And after thinking about it for a while, I remembered in this small church, I was like the middle school leader. This was like an in-between thing between college and my job. And there was a middle school and I taught the middle school boys, and I would, use Minecraft to like make it relevant and stuff. And was just trying to take what the scripture was saying and make it somehow interesting for these kids that did not care. Like they wanted to leave as soon as possible so they could go play video games. And I totally understood. I've been a middle school boy, so it was just like, all right, but here, this is really important. I need you to like hear what I'm saying. And there was this one kid who came up after church one day and said like, "Jay, I want to be baptized." And this kid never listened to anything. Like he just would flip over tables, would flip over the couches. And I'm like, "Dude, no, you don't. Like you straight up do not want to do that because you do not listen. Like, I don't even think you know what you're talking about. You're just like repeating stuff." And so I said, "Okay, then like tell me why you want to do that." And he just repeated back to me like, "Oh, I just want Jesus to be my Lord. I know I do wrong things and I need forgiveness and all this." And so I was like, "Okay, like then we'll all baptize you." And so I baptized him. And I remembered that minute, like while I was there at the Cavs game, I remembered baptizing that kid. And God just being like, didn't that just mean more? Like wasn't that more important than this, however cool you think this is? And it ruined my job. Like from that moment on, I just couldn't enjoy it anymore. Everything I did was just like, even if this is the coolest thing I ever make, it won't matter anymore. And so I prayed. There's this verse, Ephesians 2:10. It says, "We're your workmanship, created in Christ Jesus to do good works that he prepared in advance that you might walk in." And that's just really churchy, but it's basically saying that there is a good thing that God prepared for every individual person, that there is a purpose that God is creating you for, and that the world is like ready for this thing to happen. And so I was like, okay, what is that? Is it this? Like, I will keep doing this. I love what I'm doing. I just want to make sure it matters. Like, I want to make sure this is the thing that you're creating me for. And if it's not, I will go anywhere. Like, I will do anything. If you want me to, it sucks to say, but like, if you tell me no technology, and for some reason, this is just where my mind went, because it was like the worst possible thing. Like, I'll go to Africa and, you know, I'll have no clean water and like no electronics. You let me know, like, wherever you want me to go. And I was like, I don't think that's what you're preparing me for, because that's the opposite of what I feel prepared for, but I'll do it. Like, you just make it very clear, whatever it is, and I'll do it. And I prayed that for 6 months. It was literally every day. It was my daily routine would be to wake up and drive in DC traffic, since we were talking about that, for 30 minutes. And in traffic, the whole way there, I would pray and say, I'm about to go to work, but I could go somewhere else today. Like, I could go do anything else today if you wanted me to, but I'm going to go to work until you tell me what to do. And I'm going to keep looking. I'm open. I don't want you to think that I'm not. So I'm completely fair game. You let me know. I'm here. And after 6 months, I remember I was halfway to work. I literally know exactly where I was because I almost crashed. And I audibly heard God say, "What about a game church?" And I don't know. That's just it's a direction. I don't even think it's what I'm doing, honestly, but it got me. It was sort of posed like a question anyway. It was sort of the same thing. Like, is it? You know, when I heard God say, like, is this the most crazy thing? But it was so left wing. It was so completely out of what I was doing or even thinking about. I'd never considered starting a church. I'd never considered game church. Like, I played video games, but I was not doing anything even close to related to that. So it was just so different. And I thought, like, what are you even talking about? But then, like, I couldn't stop thinking about it. And from that moment, I mean, I couldn't go to sleep without thinking about, like, what would that even look like? How would that even be? And that was, oh man, like, I don't know, 8 years ago or something now. And so a lot's happened obviously since then. But yeah, everything's kind of been from that moment on, like you said, kind of a burn the bridges. I quit my job. I started working. I told my pastor. My pastor said, "We're a church planning church. That's, you know, we can help you start a church." I said, "Sweet. Like, how do we do that?" And then we talked about it, and I started working there. I worked there for 5 years. I went through a church planning residency and learned to plant a church. Was going to plant a church, maybe even a church that looks kind of what like Lex looks like now, which is awesome. But I was going to do it in a physical building because I just didn't even know online was like a possibility, you know. And through that process, started online just to get to know people, and of course that turned into whatever it is today. So yeah, it really was this. It was this waiting on God to answer, and praying very diligently for probably 6 months. And I had a small group of people that were praying as well. But it was I think God was. It wasn't that God was like waiting necessarily, as much as like my prayer got more and more desperate as time went. It started with like, yeah, like, let me know where I can do motion graphics, you know, for the kingdom, you know. And that was like, if you want me to do it for a church, just make sure that I have enough money to do that. And then it was like, I mean, even if you wanted me to not do motion graphics, like, anywhere in the States I could probably do. Like, it'd be fine if I had the money. I just can't think of how I could make enough to make it, you know? And it just got more and more to the point where it was like, okay, here's the thing, right? Like, I will do anything and go anywhere. Is that good enough? Like, and that was the prayer. Like, when it hit that level, and I meant it, is when it was, you know, he gave me something that was like exactly what I needed. And I should have known from the beginning, like, it's God. He knows what I need more than I do. So yeah. So it's a winded story.
No, it's a beautiful story, Jate, and I want to thank you for sharing it. Church family, I am so blessed by Jate and his story and his faithfulness to what God has done, and it's been so compelling for me personally. I hope it has been for you as well. We're going to do something here in a second, and then we're going to have Jate back on for our post-service experience. So if you have questions for Jate about how he got into it, what he's doing, any of that stuff, raise them in chat here towards the end of service, and we're going to have some of those conversations. But Jate, just a beautiful story of indeed the waiting. You got the months of waiting on God, the God moment, receiving the power, and then just the going, right? Hey, I'm following God into whatever he has for me. And it's so cool to see how he's provided for you time and time again in this season. Jay, we're going to pull you off screen here for just a moment, and then we'll have you back on in a second, okay? Welcome back. I didn't really see any. If you have questions for Jade, we had a lot of fives in chat for the baptisms and stuff. If you guys have questions for Jade, feel free to raise them, and we can have a little bit of conversation about that in the post service. Also, guys, I hear a little bit of echo back in my ears. I don't know if you guys hear the echo back, so let me know if you're hearing my voice twice right now. But Jade, before we get into this, one of the questions I wanted to ask you is, I'm sure, like, you've taking the deep dive into all of this, right? Which is so cool. But I'm sure there's been times when there were also hard times and there were doubts over the course of this last year. I don't know how long you've been streaming, like 2 years now at least. How did you work through some of the doubts and the setbacks and the difficulties that come with content creation and reaching people online? People that show up and then disappear, never come back, stuff like that.
Yeah. So I was reading chat at the same time. How to deal with the setbacks of people that disappear and never come back, right? Is that what you said? Right?
Well, just like the setbacks of anything, any of the discouragement, the setbacks, the doubts that have sort of come along in your streaming journey and what you're doing right now.
Yeah, I think some of that is just like the main thing is the main thing. And so as long as the main thing is there, then I can deal with small setbacks. Like I'm used to disappointment. Like as an artist, you get really good at trying something and then just super failing at it and being like, well, I guess that was a wasted week of time. So I'm pretty used to that kind of stuff. It's more the beginning with the end in mind, and if I know that it's headed in the right direction, then I'm willing to give it some play, and if it doesn't work, then we try something else. And I think that's really how I deal with it, is just we'll try it, and if it doesn't work out, then that's okay. So yeah, I don't know if that fully answers it, but that's kind of how I think about it. Is if I can't see why I'm doing something, then it doesn't really matter what it is. I have to really get my head in a place where I say, this is why I'm doing it, and this is my I don't want to just. Some people go head first into some of the stuff, specifically with streaming, without knowing why they're doing it. Like, I need to grow my stream. I need to get more people in here. If you can't tell me why, and your goal is just for finances, well, there's better ways to get finances than streaming, for sure, easily. I've done that. So you need to know why you're doing it. And I think not a lot of people have really thought through that. It's just sort of a thing you just think is the next step. And so, I would say the why is how I deal with setbacks. I can give you specific reasons why I'm doing things. And so therefore it doesn't matter if it's successful or not, because I just pivot to something else that sits on the same why.
I love that. Beggy Man asked in the chat, what software do you recommend for someone getting into project mapping? I find it fascinating.
Yeah, projection mapping. Yeah. So that, if you're going to first get started, there's a lot. There's a lot of stuff, but I used After Effects a lot. Just basic After Effects. And at the beginning was just, I had a projector. If you want to get started, you just point a projector at something and then make it so that wherever you draw on the canvas actually draws on the real projection, just like mirror your screen on the projection thing. And that'll get you started. And then from there, you'll kind of move on to other things. But yeah, I mean, that probably is the starting point, since most people usually have After Effects. Then I use Cinema 4D and, everything else after that.
Okay, got you. Heart's Love asked, you said you do a Bible study, but you don't call it a Bible study. So what have you read so far? Have you finished any books of the Bible yet in the format that you use?
Yes, yeah, we call it a Bible discussion, which that's an important distinction for me because I've talked about this a little bit, but I I think of things in terms of a non-believer. Like I try really hard. That's the people I'm trying to reach, are non-believers. So I don't say a Bible study because I wouldn't go to a science study. I would go to a science discussion. So I think of it like that. What would it take? Don't think about like what would it take for somebody to come to your church. Think about what it would take for you to go to a mosque. It's very difficult for Christians to separate themselves from the thinking of somebody that's different from them. But if you can give something that is to a non-believer the same parallel, it doesn't matter if it's a church or a mosque. They're the exact same thing if you don't go to a church. Same, I think of like that. Same with science. I replace the word Bible with science often and think in my head just like, okay, what would it take for me to go to a science thing, And I obviously, like, they're not necessarily great parallels, but it at least gets your brain in the right mindset of like wording of things. That's why I say I would go to a science discussion where we were discussing science, and it's not about if you are a scientist or if you know a lot about science, but if you're just willing to have an open discussion about it and talk about things that maybe you otherwise wouldn't talk about, you wouldn't find it in another place, but you want to hear it from somebody who otherwise would not. Otherwise, you would not have a chance to talk about. And with somebody that has actually spent a lot of time studying, but wants to just talk about it and discuss with people that are open and minded about it. Oh, well, I'd go to that. Yeah. And so I do that same wording that I use whenever I'm thinking about what a Bible discussion is. So I don't know if I can't remember exactly what the question was, but what was the actual question?
The follow-up connection with that, have you ever worked through an entire book of the Bible before?
Oh, yeah. Yes, multiple. We did lots in Discord. Again, this has kind of been going for like, I guess, four years or something like that, but in Discord before it was going on Twitch. But yeah, we've gone through all of Acts, but we're actually now going through Acts again, and we're very close. We have maybe 3 more weeks till we'll have finished Acts, is what we're currently going in. Before that, we did all of Proverbs. We've done Ephesians, and we did a lot of we follow Paul's journey a lot. That ends up happening just regularly. A lot of the letters of Paul, I like. Probably just I personally enjoy Paul's story, but so that's, yeah, we've gone through quite a few things. I would say I really like the way that we'd word certain things, like for Proverbs. Yeah. So you're saying like Proverbs is not easy at all. I think Proverbs is actually one of the easiest, if not the easiest, to go through with non-Christians.
Agreed.
Because for me, I think Proverbs is, I call it like the IKEA handbook of life. It's showing you how to put your life together in a way that is going to be effective. And you read that, and it just is, the wisdom just like leaks out of it. And you don't have to, it's not just a story anymore. It's something that's like, oh, this is completely relevant to my life. Even if I don't necessarily believe all the things that you believe, I still know that this is true. Like, I know this is true about myself, and I know this is true about people. And so I really like Proverbs. I thought it was actually maybe easier than Acts, where every week we're, reading. I'm having to give a lot of backstory about Paul and why the Jews were a certain way and why they thought this way about Gentiles. And I have to kind of premise and can't assume that anybody was there from the previous week. So, but Proverbs is like, it just hits. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Jate, I want to thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate you for being part of our community, being a personal friend, and also just being willing to come and share a bit of your story here with us at Lux tonight. Thanks so much for being here, brother.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Love you guys.
Love you too, man. Have a great night.
See ya.
Okay, church family, I just want to say thank you so much for being here and making Lux part of your week. We're live every Wednesday night at 8:30 p.m. EST here on Twitch, in which you can come by and join in for a service. Next week, you're in for a treat because we have Aki from Aki and Peach, who's going to be doing something very similar with us next week that we did with Jate this week. We're going to be asking him some basic questions about the actual going part, like being sent out. And some of the stuff that Aki's done is really cool. And he was just featured in a really cool spotlight by Bungie, who owns and runs Destiny 2, which is the stream that he and his family stream, or the game that he and his family stream. It's going to be really cool to have him with us next week. We're going to be wrapping up the Glow series next week, having that conversation with Aki from Aki and Peach. So please come and join us. Put exclamation point Jate in the chat. So please go follow Jate tonight. And Jate, I love you guys. Sorry I echoed. It's okay, Jate. Jate, answer this for me while I go through the last piece. Are you going live tonight right now? Because if you are, we would love to raid our community over to you tonight as we close down service. Also, let's hit exclamation point guest in the chat. First off, Sunshine, so glad to have you here with us. Thanks for being here. If you're here for the very first time tonight, would you let us know how things went? This is an abnormal night. Usually I'm teaching. Tonight we had more of an interview style where I was having a conversation with Jate. I'll stream some. Yeah, okay, great. If you go live, we'll go ahead and send people over. I miss Jate. You did Artsy Bible Nerd, but we're going to send you over to Jate tonight as well. I want to invite you to come and join us in Discord after service tonight as well. It's one of the last summer nights. Come and hang out with us a little late tonight. Stop on over. Gibbles and Bits is going to be in the Discord welcome room, welcoming you if you're here for the very first time. Come by and stop by and say hello to him. We have Zeph, who's going to be hanging out in the prayer rooms tonight to pray with you if you would like someone to pray with you. We have discussion rooms in room 1 and 2, and the rest of the hangout rooms open as well. I'm going to be in the Meet Pastor Mark room. If you'd like to stop by and say hello to me tonight, please feel free to stop by and say hello to me in Discord after service. We're going over there directly after this, but we're also going to do our best to go ahead and drop you off over with Jate tonight as well. Thank you for being here, church family. We really appreciate you. And if you are a first-time guest, we're going to go ahead and throw exclamation point guest in the chat. Josh is going to do that for you. He already did it. It's already there. Guest is in the chat. If you were here for the very first time, grab that link, fill out that form for us. All it does is let us know how we did, give us a little bit of feedback. We don't ask for any personal information. Thank you for being here. Thank you to all the new subs, all the new followers tonight. We appreciate you and love you. Come back next week and join us when we talk with Aki from Aki and Peach. Have a great week, everybody, and peace out.